Good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Reedman. I'm president of the Charles River Regional Chamber. And I'm really excited to be doing this, having this conversation today with the five candidates who are vying for four positions on the Watertown City Council, the at-large positions. And we will be recording this event so that you can share it with others and an opportunity for people to see this later. But we're happy to have them. We're happy to have you all in the audience. With us today, this morning, is Councillor Carolyn Bays. You can just raise your hand. I think people know who you are, but we have Councillor John Gannon, Councillor Tony Palomba, and we have Theo Offei, who is one of the two challengers, along with Tom Tracy. So thank you all for that. And a reminder to everybody, there's four positions on the council, so only one of these folks will be voted off the island. We're not sure which one yet, so. But appreciate it. Here's the format for today. This will be a 90-second debate, no opening statement, or a 90-minute debate, no opening statement, but we will have closing statements at the end. We will not be using a timer for your answers because some answers deserve longer responses than others. But I ask all the candidates to keep it short and not try to be redundant to someone else. If you agreed with someone or whatever, go there. I'll ask every candidate to respect each other's time. Keep your answers concise. I reserve the right to interrupt, either in the interest of time or for clarity, or just to give someone else an opportunity to speak. So, and I did share with the candidates the final question that we'll be asking this morning, which would be great. Everybody in the audience can think about this too. Which four people would you select to be on your Watertown Mount Rushmore? So, it'll be interesting to see where everybody comes up on this one. I want to start with, actually, let me ask you to start here. If everybody could briefly tell us about their professional career. And I'm not looking for you to tell us your resume, but it's just a chance for us to get an idea where you come from professionally, what kind of work you've done outside of being on the council, so people can get to know a little about you. And remember, this is a business audience, so really we're thinking of trying to understand where you come from in terms of what your business experience you bring to the council. And we will start with Councillor Bays.
Well, so my professional career, actually, I first worked at a university for many years, but after I got married and had my kids, I actually decided to stay at home because the cost of healthcare, I mean, daycare was too much. So I spent many, many years at home. Instead of doing professional things, I volunteered for a lot of different organizations. So I understand the importance of those. And I then decided to become a city councilor after volunteering and working for a lot of campaigns.
Great, thank you. Councilor Gannon?
Yes, thank you, Greg, and also thank you the chamber staff and your members for hosting us this morning. I'm John Gannon, and my professional background has actually been in local government for a 30-plus year career. I became interested in working with cities and towns after college, a state agency I worked with, and I found that there was a very interesting career in helping the lives of others. So I went to law school to become a municipal attorney. And in the course of my career as a local government attorney, I've represented over 100 cities and towns directly. And with the state agency I work for now, I've done work for every single city and town. So local government is where it's at. It's the effective delivery of services. And I love working with people, and I love that profession and being a city council.
Councilor Palomba.
Thank you. I began my career basically working in the field of human services. I've been working in that for many, many years. After college, I worked with folks who had developmental disabilities, actually living in a home with 6 individuals who had developmental disabilities. Went on to working as administrator for this nonprofit organization, doing public speaking around Boston, urging people to get into the field. I then worked also for 17 years in the field of public health and prevention, doing quite a bit of work with communities and individuals, trying to address the issues of healthcare, health and prevention. And then in the last 10 years, I've worked part-time for a UPS right here in Watertown.
Great, thank you. Tom Tracy.
Yeah, thank you. After graduating from the College of the Holy Cross, I went into government, and my entire career was in government. First 10 years was in the state government for 3 different state agencies, and then I was honored and privileged to become the town and then city auditor for Watertown. And did that for 29 years and served the town in handling all the finances of the town, and actually learned all the running of all the town departments during my tenure.
Very good. And Theo Offei. You're on mute.
I work within the technology industry at the intersection of startups and working with venture capitalists. And now I focus on real estate development. That experience is actually part of the reason why I decided to join the race. Because I believe, and I hope we get to talk about that at some point during this conversation. I strongly believe that Watertown has an opportunity to diversify our economic base, and that should lead us to being a tech hub. And I hope at some point we become a tech hub. And when that day comes, I hope there is someone there who understands the industry to lead us there.
Okay, thank you all very much for that, and welcome again. So I watched the middle school debate that you did earlier this week, and my one impression is generally you all pretty much agree with each other on most issues. There were some differences there, and that's great. And it's also great that you all really seem to get along and like each other, and that's something that I think voters really appreciated in an era when the public is pretty tired of public officials bickering. But that doesn't help us too much. It doesn't help voters too much if they're really trying to decide which of the 4 of you to vote for. So today, I just want to ask you to, while continue being respectful of each other, do help us understand where you differ from each other. If you agree with each other, we can just move on to the next question. But help us understand where the differences are, so voters can think about where how they want to make their decisions, or where you align, or just what separates you. So I want to start by talking about Watertown Square and the many opportunities that is going to offer for so many of us, and we're all very excited about that. I know you share that view. But sometimes success in a development project like that can drive out our small independent merchants. First question: how do you propose we make sure Watertown Square is a place for new independent businesses, and we don't lose the ones that are there now during the building or construction of a parking lot and behind CVS or any of the things that may happen there? How do we preserve our small independent businesses in Watertown Square? And I'll start with Tony Palomba to win this one.
Thank you. Well, I think it is important to keep as many of the small businesses in the square. It's a tough question exactly what we would do. I think part of the thing we would do, if there is new buildings that are taking place, new residential buildings, we could see about people moving into those buildings on the first floor. Those local businesses can thrive in that situation, particularly since above them are many residents who could use those those businesses. I think there needs to be some effort, and I know the Watertown Business Coalition, and I assume the Chamber works closely with our friends in the arts and culture community. And I think that is something that can help keep people in the square. I think some new efforts around marketing can happen. We have a pretty good, in our city, we have a pretty good development, Department of Development and Community Development. We also have a director of community design and an economic development director. I think they all could participate in helping to market those small businesses to the rest of Watertown. And I think that the arts community can do something by drawing in people into the square. So I think there's some things we can do around marketing, around arts, and around moving folks into those buildings, in the mixed-use buildings around residential developments.
Very good. Tom Tracy, the same question. How do we make sure that independent businesses are part of the Watertown Square of the future?
Yeah, we really need to try to keep those small businesses, along with what Tony said, the planning department assisting us in doing everything we can do, from helping marketing. maybe the town's website, helping to notice, put out notice whether some of them may have had to relocate if that's the case, or remind them that they're still open, but the traffic flow, whether it's walking, getting there. Another idea, and I know it wouldn't work for the restaurants and the like, but some of the other businesses, maybe we could put like small modulars in the municipal parking lot while there's some construction being done, or find some space in some areas around the square. I know there's a lot of land that is being developed where the old gas station was years ago, up from Dunkin' Donuts.
Can I interrupt for a second? What do you by small modulars, for what purpose? I'm not.
To put, maybe just relocate some of the businesses temporarily until such time that they can get back into their original location.
Great. Okay. Theo, same question. You're still on. You're mute, Theo.
I just want to clarify the question. Is it post the Watertown development, or?
Well, I think throughout the entire process, we're worried about during development, what will happen to those businesses that are there, but also we want to attract businesses to the new spaces that get constructed, first floor, ground floor, retail spaces. How do we make sure those are independent businesses, mom and pop, privately owned businesses, are part of the mix of what we have in Watertown Square in the future?
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I agree with what Jane Jacobs once said, which is you can't just bring people downtown, you have to put them there. And one of the ways that I think, and it's one of the reasons why I'm very excited about a square plan, I think we need to build more housing, and the housing stock that is gonna come in there is gonna naturally encourage people to come, encourage businesses to come to the square. That is one way that we do it. The other way would be to, for example, restaurants. We need to encourage outdoor dining, for example, in the summer. Another area that we could look at is doing some marketing within the city of like maybe Watertown Eats or something like that. I also do want to point out that the new economic development secretary for the state of Massachusetts is Eric Pelly. Eric Pelly used to be a venture capitalist. Yeah, he runs one of the best seed stage firms in the country, Founder Collective. I think our city needs to be able to work with someone like Eric Pelly to attract small businesses to come into Watertown, especially startups. And those are the three visions that I hope would vitalize and encourage businesses in the city.
Thank you very much. Caroline, same question. How do we make sure we keep our small businesses part of the mix in Watertown Square?
Sure, and small businesses are the heartbread of American economy, a large employer and such, and it's just vitality for neighborhoods and for community development. I can mention Watertown Square used to have a thriving downtown business community, and unfortunately, about 30 plus years ago, the state of Massachusetts conditioned funds for repairing Main Street by eliminating the off-street parking right in front of businesses.
I appreciate that, but I'm really looking for what's the idea, what's the solution for?
Sure. So, well, we need to create more customers for local businesses. The Watertown Square plan does that, provides housing above the first and second story buildings that exist now. That provides customers and opportunities. Watertown also, through the city council's budget initiatives, hired an economic development planner, Erin Rath, just to focus on small businesses. So we need to be proactive in bringing vital businesses in town. When's the last time you've seen an ice cream shop in Watertown Square? I would like to see that vitality back. And it takes proactive measures on the part of city government. It takes experienced leadership to bring those opportunities to Watertown and to pitch it and to promote it and to build it.
Thank you. Caroline, you get the last word here. Any idea you haven't heard yet that you want to share about this?
Sure. I mean, as people have said, long-term, I actually think with the housing we're creating, it's going to be great for businesses in Watertown. But right now in the East End, businesses are really suffering due to the construction, and unfortunately, that's really difficult to to alter. Just people don't want to go through all that construction. We're going to have the same problems when it comes down to Watertown Square. That's short term though. Long term, I would love to see us be able to do some innovative things. I remember in Jeff Speck's original drawing in the Delta, there were little kiosks. That would be great for allowing small, tiny businesses to start up, to have little kiosks in the Delta that would be much cheaper to rent than a full store. So that was the one thing that I had that I thought would be a wonderful little thing we could do in Watertown Square.
Terrific. Thank you. All right, next question. Tell us one thing that the city manager did or tried to do that you did not agree with, and one thing he's done that you do agree with. And this is a quiz of whether you can follow directions. I want only one of each. One thing you agreed with, one thing you didn't. You might have a long list. So, but tell us that, and we'll start with Tom Tracy on this one.
One thing he's done, he's created the 311 department. I think that's a very good tool for the residents and the constituents to be able to go to one place with their concerns, issues, and to get the administration then to act upon some of those concerns and issues. So I think that was a good thing that the city manager has put in place. One of the, excuse me, one of the things that I think he's maybe missed is that just recently he came out and it was very definitive about not being able to afford the additional $26 million for a brand new middle school. And he had an opportunity, and he does still have an opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it in the coming up, and I think it's October 14th, when he does the preliminary budget overview. I think he could have announced to the council he was concerned that was the need for another $26 million, but that he and his finance team would be looking at it and in the preliminary budget overview, hopefully come up with at least an option of how we can afford the $26 million. I know the money's there.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, so if everyone could tell me one thing they liked, one thing they didn't like, and Tom, you did that exactly right. And then when we're done with that, I'll give you a chance to talk about your fellow colleagues' answers if you agree or disagree with them. So just start, Theo, if you could tell us one thing you liked, one thing you didn't like.
One thing I liked is the way you managed the Watertown Square area plan discussion. I think that was one of the most engaged movement that I've seen citizen participation in the local project, and I think that was because of the vision that he brought to the table and how he did it. So I really appreciated that open forum and discussion. The one thing that he's done that I don't really know. I mean, I think, like, to Tom's point, I actually like the 311, but I think the 311 can be better. This is one of the areas where I think we need technological innovation. I think that 311 should be an app, not what it is right now, because it's not as effective. I think, there are other cities that do it better.
Great. Thank you. Caroline, same question?
Yeah, I would say I liked what the things that people were saying, but personally, the hiring the human services director, I was really excited to see a human services director. We really needed that in town, and our employees really needed it. One thing I didn't like, I was actually I will disagree with Tom Tracy. I was actually really concerned about doing a middle school right now with the way our finances are and keeping our AAA bond rating. I did vote for the feasibility study because I wanted to see if it was feasible, but I had serious concerns.
I'm a little confused. This is the thing you didn't like, was that he didn't go forward with the middle school?
Well, no, I like that we did not go forward with the middle school. I was concerned about the middle school.
Is there a thing that you disliked?
I was actually, I didn't like the fact that we went through the whole thing. I mean, it was good that we did the feasibility study, but I knew that the middle school was going to be a serious issue to move forward with in terms of our finances and keeping our AAA bond rating.
Very much. It's a very hard question because I think our city manager has done a lot of things. I'll put my first about what he has. I really appreciate the effort he's made to expand the leadership staff on the city. I remember there, I've been on the council 16 years, and I don't think there has been this explosion in terms of hiring anywhere from an open space director to the economic planning director to the director of community design. All these things I think are very important and can move Watertown forward. This is a small disagreement, and I have others, but let me just say I was a little disappointed in his presentation of the administrative code, which included putting the Community Preservation Committee under his purview. I think the Community Preservation Committee should stand alone.
Very good. John, one thing you liked, one thing you didn't like.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity. So I do like that the staffing initiatives that the city manager had put into place. We will now have a second advanced life support ambulance and the staff to accommodate to back up our first ambulance. The manager also hired some really savvy planners, both for small businesses and for future development of Watertown, and also engaging, promoting communication from within the city. He established a community engagement specialist to reach out to underserved communities and to people who aren't being served by Watertown, and to maximize the communications that the city does provide. Provided a social media team to do the same. So one thing I disagree with, and I agree with Tom on this one, it seems like we have some issues of contention, and that's the creation of the new Watertown Middle School plan. I was thoroughly disappointed, like Tom stated, that the Watertown Middle School was not determined to be feasible at the moment. And to that point, I filed a resolution to call the city council to discuss this. So the manager presented a study, but there was no final vote by the city council, and I would like to see one. I went to that school in junior high school, and it was outmoded many decades ago when I was there. We need to bring full world-class learning opportunities for our school children all the way from K to high school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'll open the floor. Is there anything that you heard from one of your fellow candidates that you disagreed with that you just want to share with briefly?
I guess I would want to talk more about a middle school. And I agree with both Tom and John that we need to do the middle school. I just don't know how we do it. I've heard that we can do it, but I just don't know. I mean, looking at a budget, it looks like maybe, yeah, we can do it, but it's not necessarily without stealing from Peter to feed Paul. I guess one way that maybe we could do it is by not funding our OPEB liability, which certainly could work, but I'd like to hear the details of how we do it, because there's nothing I would love more than doing that.
Tom, you want to come in here?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. Many years ago, we carved out a certain part of the budget, or a certain amount of money in the budget, started with $28.5 million. It's now $34.5 million. And those, and what we used that money, or that carve out was to pay off the debt yes, the debt service related to the schools, the pension system, and as Theo just mentioned, was OPEB. And we kept those monies constant. So as the budget grows, we still kept it at 28.5. We did gradually grow it as the overall budget grew with new growth that we received during many years, but it's now at 34.5. It is a constant amount. How we can afford the middle school is just changing some of those amounts and how we're doing it. And some of the money he adds up to the 34.5 million transfers into stabilization funds related to those specific topics. We can use that money instead of transferring them in or paying off OPEB. We can do that using debt service and pay for the middle school.
Great, thank you. Caroline, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I am, if this was just, a $10-15 million difference, this was a huge difference in what we originally talked about, the 85 million. I think that first of all, I don't want to see something like an override happen, which is very destructive to communities. And I don't want to see us losing our AAA bond rating. And during these uncertain times, yes, they came up with $112 million is what it costs, but we don't know what the tariffs are going to bring. We don't know, actually. There's so much uncertainty about what it's actually going to cost. I just think that this is the wrong time to be doing the middle school. Meanwhile, they did a feasibility from the feasibility study. They discovered that there are ways that we can improve the middle school right now, and we can afford to upgrade the middle school and do the kinds of things that we would have done with a new school. And then we can wait for 20 years until we, until we can be assured that we can, okay.
Okay, John.
Yes, thank you. So bit of a contention here. So in my background as a city and town lawyer, I work for a state agency that does municipal finance issues. I work with bond rating agencies. I work with innovative approaches for cities and towns to accomplish even more crisis situation than we're talking about now. One solution that I would offer is the use of special legislation. We have the ability to pay off school construction or any construction over the course of 30 years. So we can get special legislation, other cities and towns have, to extend the borrowing period for 40 years, which would reduce the first term amounts of the debt service. And then once we pay off the OPEB liability in 2031, we'll have more flexibility. We also have the present situation where the city managers discussed in the State of the City address that our AAA bond rating allows us to borrow at rates in the 2%. We haven't heard about that rate in many years. So also we have the modular classrooms that are being used to accommodate the new high school. As City Council President Mark Sideris mentioned, keeping those would help provide swing space for the middle school students when that new building is constructed.
Tony, your turn.
Thank you. I actually disagree with some of my folks on this. I agree with Caroline. I think the town manager, the city manager has done a great job presenting his budget for the last 2 years, and I expect he will do it again this year. There is AI3. We've been working with AI3 for years. And if they come up with a feasibility study that says it's going to take $112 million to do this, and we have $87 million, I think I trust that. I also trust the city manager's presentation of the material and the figures. One of the things I just want to emphasize, in order to get the 70 million, we had to push a lot of projects back in our, I always get this mixed up, the budget that determines on what we're going to spend in the future on mostly on infrastructure projects. And I think that, I think that was a mistake. We moved that money back. We moved things like the senior center back, example, in order for us to come up with the $70 million.
Thank you very much. I want to move on, but
this is actually an issue that I also want an opportunity to chime in on. So I actually do want to say something about it. Well, I agree with everything that has been said, but one of the things that I take, I guess, maybe issue with, like, for example, John mentioned that our AAA bond rating allows us to borrow the 2%. The last bid that we actually got for the 70 million debt was about 3.817. The other issue with finance is that if you borrow a 40-year term, your interest rate is going to go up.
Did everybody freeze except me?
What was that?
No, I'm alive.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. If you borrow a 40-year term, your interest rate is going to go up. It's not going to stay where it is, right? So right now, as we see in the budget, we are at about 15.6% in the budget debt service. Our stabilization fund is, as I think someone mentioned earlier, $34 million or something like that. By my calculation, if we borrow the extra $30 million, it's going to bring us to about $2 million in additional interest payments per year. That is going to quickly deplete our stabilization fund. And two things are going to happen. Our budget debt service is going to get closer to the 20% threshold that the rating agencies look at to potentially downgrade a municipality credit bond rating. Two, with the depletion of, sorry, I could, but I think there's a conversation that
I
we
want to
have
make sure we get
it.
time for a lot of other questions. I'll give anyone a chance if they have something quick they want to add. Otherwise, I will give you a question, something of a follow-up, which is, I think we all know economics at the moment are very uncertain. We don't know what kind of federal state support we're going to get. We've seen the collapse of the lab market. There's a lot of things up in the air. Are there any circumstances where you would support what would be Watertown's first override, either debt exclusion or an operating override? If the answer is no, then I think we can just move on. But if anyone thinks there's any time when they would consider an override, I'd love to hear about it. Okay, that solves that one.
Well, no, I don't think I would support an override. I think, we've done so well thanks to the leadership of someone like Tom, without doing an override. But
okay,
I don't think you can never say never.
Okay.
I think.
So I want to talk about taxes in general and revenue in general.
I'd like to
go ahead, Tony.
Greg, can you just the override question? That was the first question, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think I said I'm not sure how I answered it at the first meeting, but I don't agree with the city manager that an override always leads to divisiveness within a community. You can have differences of opinion and still come through with an override. I just was reading the MMA's forecast about its new piece called The Perfect Storm, and it clearly makes that cities and towns are could come into very difficult situations. So I'm not completely against an override. I think it has to be chosen very, very carefully. But I just want to put that out there that there are options.
Thank you. And Caroline and John, but try to keep your answers short.
Okay. I will just say, I'm not 100% opposed to any override ever, but we should not do a self-imposed, decision that creates an override. I was a campaign manager for some people in Belmont, and I saw what overrides did to that town. It's really divisive. It's really destructive, and I just don't want to see that happening to Watertown.
Okay, John and Tom, if you have something you want to say too.
Yes, thank you. And I too read the Massachusetts Municipal Association report that came out yesterday, citing a perfect storm. Cities and towns face historic fiscal pressures. Watertown doesn't. And we have, unlike other communities, small towns, and I worked with every single city and town, as I said before. Small towns are up against it. They have no commercial base. They can't attract residents. They can't grow their tax base. We've been working with them to share services and the like. Watertown, however, starting with the prior city manager, Mike Driscoll, has been anticipating downturns in the economy, and that's by growing our own economy. Over 10 years ago, Watertown upzoned a lot of buildings that created a lot of new growth, new taxes, and we're in good shape relative to others.
Okay. Tom, do you want to add something, or were you good?
Yeah, I guess that I just want to remind everybody, we've had uncertain times with downturns. I was in my position in 2008, which is probably one of the most last significant downturn as far as how it affected the town's budget. We weathered the storm. I believe I was an integral part of the team with the city council, the town manager, and myself working through that. And I also agree with what Caroline just said. I have experience in Watertown, thank God, but in other cities and towns,
again, the only person not freezing.
Overrides. I'm sorry, I was interrupted?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Go ahead. If you can wrap.
All right, but overrides in other cities and towns that I've seen, it just splits the city of town, and Watertown shouldn't be split.
Great, thank you. So this is a related question related to taxes, okay? In August, the council voted to ask Beacon Hill for the authority to permanently tax commercial businesses at a higher rate than residents. That's fabulous news for our residents, but it's not good news for our businesses. What have you done, or what would you do to help the businesses who are going to have an added burden here, knowing this is a really tough time for a lot of businesses between all the economic things that are happening? Or don't you think it's a problem or a concern thing we need to be worried about in terms of how much our businesses are paying in property taxes? And I think it is time to start with John Gannon on this one.
Yes, thank you. And what you talked about, Greg, is a split rate, different tax rate for
Is
both.
anybody but me freezing?
I'm sorry, someone spoke?
Yeah, you're the only, I'm not seeing any other freezing problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry. So Watertown, like many other communities in Massachusetts, have a split tax rate, higher commercial tax rate versus residential. It's like any urban municipality does the same thing, and also reflects.
Right, so, but my question really is, how do you help the businesses that are now going to be paying an added burden?
Oh, sure.
How do you help them get through this?
Oh, sure. So what businesses get from Watertown is the new focus on economic development planning for small businesses, business growth. The Watertown Square Plan is a great example of that. We're creating new business opportunities. We're creating innovative commercial spaces through these pop-up stores. And we're promoting a Watertown that's going to be more vibrant, a gateway to Watertown Square with providing attractive investment opportunities for commercial businesses that.
Counselor, I appreciate that there's some economic benefits to what tax revenue does and what the town does for businesses, but I really am looking for, how do we help these businesses who are now being asked to carry a lot more of the burden? And I'll go to you, Tony, to see what your thoughts are.
That's a tough question. That's a very tough question. I'm going to have to say that we have to return to what the city can do to help those businesses, particularly around marketing. I think that's an extremely important piece. Getting the word out for people about what they offer, trying to bring more people in from outside the city by looking at some regional efforts to attract customers from other cities and towns. I'm not sure also just building an environment, having a friendly environment for businesses, which could be something like increasing the opportunity, providing training for people to work in these businesses. One of the things I think about when I think about an business environment is a workforce. Are we providing people that kind of workforce, and is it possible for the town to do some of the training to bring people in to the workforce and not rely always on the businesses to do the training? So I think marketing and training.
Okay. Tom, any thoughts about the added burden now on commercial businesses related to the tax shift?
Well, I think the special legislation has given us that we're asking for, and I agree that the council should have asked for it. It just gives us flexibility. It doesn't mean that we're going to actually always shift to the 1.75. It gives us the flexibility. Now, the probability is we're going to, but it gives us flexibility. And as we look at the tax rate, and we don't have to worry about that for fiscal year 26, which they'll be set in October, November, but because we're talking about the fiscal year 27 tax rate with the special legislation that you were mentioning, we can maybe look at it and look at what is the fair percentage for each of the taxes, the residential versus the commercial. Watertown, we've always looked at stuff like that and try to be accommodating to business. Overall, with businesses, what we should do is try to make our town and community more inviting, more easy to be accessible to people who want to use the businesses, and in that way we can get the businesses hopefully to stay there and prosper. And that's what I think we all want to do.
Thank you. And I just have to say, I've watched many municipalities. I don't know anyone that has this shift available to them that doesn't put a greater burden on commercial properties. As we all know, residents vote, and commercial property owners may or may not live in town and vote. But Caroline, your ideas about helping small businesses now that there's an added burden on the property tax side.
Yeah, I mean, the one way we can help, that we as a city council can help small businesses, is to provide you with new customers by building more homes. If we build more houses, if we increase our density, that's how we can help the small businesses most effectively, I believe.
Great, thank you. And employees for the companies that are looking for employees. Theo, your turn.
I think one of the ways we can help the businesses is by helping them grow their revenue. And one of the ways that we do that is things like the Watertown Square Area Plan. You bring people into the businesses, you put people there and bring people into the business so people spend money. That way they can give back to the community. I am strongly in support of making this tax split permanent, because the people that live here also deserve the benefits of all the growth that we're seeing. And oftentimes that is through tax.
So yeah, I guess I just ask you to, as a follow-up though, at some point, Watertown has to compete with our adjacent communities, and having a higher tax rate and making it more expensive for businesses to come here is a disadvantage for.
Yeah, sorry, and I completely get that, but the other thing that we can also do is streamline our permitting processes. I mean, for example, again, I'm shifting to the small businesses, mom and pops kind of. One of the things that before I decided to run, one of the things that I would do is when we go to places you talk to restaurant owners about opening a place in Watertown. One of the things they would one of the reasons why they would say they won't come is because they don't want to deal, for example, with our licensing board or something like that. We need to make it easier for businesses to be able to operate over here, and I think that's an added benefit as well. But I'm very, very in support for with making the shift permanent, because I do think our citizens.
Anybody have any other additional different ideas that haven't come up to a way we can help our businesses? John.
Yes, thank you. So, first of all, as a longtime member of the Watertown Zoning Board for the council, I wouldn't be blaming individual boards and commissions for problems with local businesses. What businesses do need is housing for workers. We have quality development standards for business growth. We need to promote restaurants, open spaces, and a vibrant community that attracts both workers and new customers. So, Watertown is poised. We're building efficient roadways to speed us up to getting to Logan Airport. We offer hotel rates that don't have a surcharge that Cambridge and Boston has. But it's also, we have good budget practices that don't impose extra cost, like Proposition 2.5 debt exclusions and overrides, and also a knowledgeable and efficient city staff to answer questions about promoting business and providing guidance on local expectations. We also need safe neighborhoods and business environments. So that's what.
Thanks. I just want to note that surcharge that Cambridge and Boston hotels pay for goes directly back to promoting and marketing, visiting and spending money in that community. But I appreciate that there is.
But also paying for the convention center itself, the building.
No, not that fee. That fee does not. That fee is strictly for marketing. Anyway, I want to move on to sustainability, and in many ways, these issues all start to overlap. The city is in the process of drafting a burden ordinance, which would require property owners to reduce energy use or face penalties. The owners of several large apartment buildings and condo buildings testified this year that those rules could really drive up rents and drive up condo fees. I want to know how do we balance the need to protect our climate with keeping Watertown housing affordable? And Theo, it's your turn to go first.
Berto on its face is, I think, a great policy, but most policies are trade-offs. And as it is right now, I know the city has initiated a study on Berto. I do want to see where that study leads so that we can make a better informed decision on what to do.
But what about, how do you think about the balance between putting on controls to help the environment, to reduce carbon footprint, and the fact that it is going to drive up costs for housing?
Absolutely, and I agree with that. And one of the conversations that we've been, if anybody hasn't read Abundance, I encourage you to read it. I don't want to see us in places in situations where because of we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. So like I said, I do want to see where the study, what a study shows, so that we can make a better informed decision. I lived in San Francisco. I mean, in the Bay Area, I saw some of the decisions that were made over there, which were good intention decisions, but it led to a lot of other problems. But like I said, Berto on its face sounds like a great policy. I just don't want it to create other problems, but we need to see the study. I'm a huge supporter. I think the climate issue is a very important issue. It's the greatest issue of our generation, but we need to also balance our.
Tom, both Cambridge and Newton exempted residential from their Berto ordinances. Is that something Watertown should do?
I don't know. I agree with Theo in the fact I think we should wait to see the study and see how that's potentially going to impact us. Watertown as a municipality is doing everything we can do, being leaders in that, and I think we should do that. As far as what we can do for the residentials or the housing developments, yeah, I'd like to wait for the study and see what it is, and and find out if there's a way that maybe we can assist in that. I don't know.
Okay. Caroline, same idea. How do we balance the need for sustainability and the need to keep housing affordable?
I think it's by having a really good and effective and workable BERDO. I mean, one of the first things I did when the BERDO came out was went and talked to the person who's implementing it, who's responsible for implementing it in Cambridge. And she pointed out several flaws in the proposed BERDO that would not be workable. What we need is to create a BERDO that we know we can implement, that we know won't be impossible for condo, especially condo associations to implement. We need to make sure that we have worked out all of the issues and create a workable BERDO that doesn't impose too much and unimplementable things on the condos and on their businesses.
But do you think it's possible that we should be following Cambridge and Newton and not add BERDO to residential?
So I think that we should. What I think is we should look at what they're doing, look at what's working. There might be a way to do it, but I know that, for instance, you can't just say that the condo associations have to implement these things when you've got 100 units and 100 different heat pumps, and each unit owns its own heat pump. That's really
Thank you, Tony. Same question for you. You want to unmute, please? There you go.
Yeah, me? Okay. Well, let me just first, I want to say, yes, we've got to find a balance, but I do think climate change is one of the most important issues that we face. Any business wants a climate change that is sustainable, so it can be sustainable. I want to point out that Boston eliminated its residential, partially because the number of residents had a small amount of the emissions, whereas in Watertown, the combination of businesses and residents lead to about 50% of our emissions. It's the highest cause of emission in the city. So I do think we need to look at it. When we started this process, it was maybe a year and a half of people working very hard, looking at very different ones around the community. There was no, and I'm not saying there should have been a certain bit, but it was only after the BERDO came forward that we see the business community and the residential community come forward. I wish they had been involved, and maybe this was the subcommittee's problem, had involved in the very beginning, so that maybe some of those issues could have been discussed. And I just want to point out a piece that Nestor Kachkevas sent us about how the high cost of energy really is an issue around equity, and how many people, in terms of low-income people and people of color, are affected by the heavy burden on energy costs. And so I direct you to a piece by the CEEA, which has a policy briefing on the effects on the issue of equity. So yes, let's find a way to merge, to reach some compromise, but let's put forward that the BERDO is an important address climate change, and that the business community and residential communities can take a leadership role in helping to create a BERDO that addresses the issue of climate.
Great, thank you. And I'll just say, as part of the business community, it's hard to come forward until you see a draft of something, so you know how to respond to it. But John, you get the last word on this one.
I understand that. Yeah.
John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So there's no doubt that both the city and everyone needs to decarbonize our buildings. Climate change is real. It's not going away. We have to address it. And with regard to the Birdo that was presented by a draft was presented by a local climate action group. And first of all, I want to applaud the actions of that group that brought forward the Birdo ordinance. Their advocacy led to a brand new high school with platinum LEED zero emission building. But in the case of this Birdo, and I guess I politely take issue with my colleague Tony, I am the chairman of the Committee on Rules and Ordinances that took up the Birdo ordinance. And I personally reached out to Greg Riedman and made sure the business community had input into the Birdo. And the Birdo, that draft that was presented to my committee had a thorough review. We actually had the Birdo manager from the city of Cambridge that Caroline mentioned. She spoke at the meeting. We heard about the large businesses in Watertown that had been built up to highest standards of energy efficiency at the time. So there was a lot of variations, and that's why the administration took the ordinance back to the drawing board. But it's a good example of public advocacy and results. But businesses and all folks need to focus on climate change as well.
Great, thank you. And now I've got to follow up on Birdo. This is on the commercial side. So commercial properties owners would also be faced with a high cost burden in many cases if they had to retrofit their buildings or change their buildings to meet the Birdo standards. And that could make us less competitive to neighboring communities that don't have such an ordinance. Maybe you say Waltham or others. So how do we keep up with that? And I'll open this up to anybody who has an idea how we make sure that Watertown's commercial properties are still competitive with communities that don't have these restrictions. Anybody want to go first?
Well, I just don't know. Greg, I'd have to do a little more research, but those folks who have a Birdo, that's like Boston, I'm not sure there's an indication that putting in a Birdo affects their ability to attract businesses or make them less competitive to the neighborhood. And then I know that the chamber has other cities that it represents. I do think that there's some things in the ordinance that would be helpful, including this the review board that allows folks to commit to present hardship situations, to look at historic buildings and refinancing, as well as look at the long-term cost of changing what they already have in place. One of the possibilities is to extend the timelines on this, to move them out a little bit. I'm really committed to Watertown sticking to 2050 goal of net zero. But, you know, maybe the situation is that we need to figure out how to extend that so the business community can take advantage of that extension and make the changes they need. So I do think we need to look carefully at it. We need also to make sure that people are well aware of the possibility of bringing suggested hardship issues to the review board. So I'll leave it at that. Let's look at a little bit of what happened in Boston. Were they not competitive? Did they lose businesses? Let's look at the timeline on this. Can we extend the timeline a bit to make it easier for businesses to respond, particularly those who have already spent money on different things like retrofit, or, you know, and they have these long-term capital interests.
Yeah, I just want to say that there's reason to believe that one of the reasons that Watertown's been successful is because when employers try and decide where to go, they look at Cambridge, they look at Boston or other places, and Watertown offers a lot of favorability, including affordability. John, I saw your hand raised, and everybody else wants to say something.
Sure, and as I said, I was the committee chair of the Rules and Ordinance Committee that considered that first Birdo draft that was submitted. And as I said before, it was taken up by the administration. The administration will study the impact of a Birdo potentially on Watertown and recognizing unique situations. We're not Cambridge, we're not Boston, but there are important objectives that at least reporting, at least providing a basis for seeing how energy changes over the course of the year. And that's, utilities can help with that as well. But
anybody have any last thoughts on this, or can we move on?
Yeah, I guess my last thought on that is that, a lot of climate initiative staff often relies on incentives and grants, and with everything going on with the federal government, we need to keep that in mind. But it's also another opportunity for us as a city to be a leader in pushing climate initiatives forward. So we need a balance. I'm largely in support of Berto. I just want to see what the study reveals.
Okay, thanks. Tom, I have a specific question for you, and that is, so you were town city auditor for 29 years, assistant city manager, acting city manager. You've been doing all this stuff, and then my question is, you've clearly earned your retirement. Why do you want to do this?
Yeah. That's a real good question, Greg. I respect the office of the city council. People who put their name on the ballot and they serve, I've always respected them. And I always thought that when I was, 2010, I said, when I retire, maybe I would consider doing this. And, then I thought I retired, time would pass. But you know what? I love this community. I grew up in this community. This community has given me so many benefits. And I've always wanted to pay it back. And I continue to try to pay it back. And I just would like the opportunity to sit on the other side of the table and work with the other 8 councilors and make a positive change for town.
Okay.
And see the growth of it.
Great, thank you. And Theo, a question for you. Like, your resume couldn't be any different from Tom's. You're born in Ghana, you're raised in Italy. You've only been in Watertown, I think, for 5 years or so. Why should voters consider you versus someone like Tom or any other incumbents who've been here for decades, lifetime, often active in Watertown? What's the case for you?
I think that's a great question. And I think, it's largely part of the reason why I also decided to run. While I have been here for only 5 years, I also have to say that, my family, my wife was born and grew up here. But more importantly, I think, we need that sort of quote unquote diversity on the city council with different perspective. And I bring that global perspective to the council. I obviously have great deal of respect for those who have lived here much longer and know the city in and out. I think we all have learnings to do, but I think the global perspective that I bring to the council is also important.
Great. Okay, so now I'm going to open this question up to the 3 incumbents, Caroline, Tony, and John. What did you think of Tom and Theo's answers? And someone has to be one of the 4 of you, one of the 5 of you isn't going to be on the council. You're all terrific. What do you think? Tony, you want to go first?
Well, you're muted, Tony.
Apologize, I thought I unmuted there. Well, I think Tom's answer is understandable. He has made a commitment to this community for so many years, and he's also sitting as the Theo on the resident advisory board, so they continue to make a commitment. And I think that's important. So I have to agree that his knowledge too of the city is very important. And he has worked with other city councilors, so I can understand. I'm a little wondering why he does want to come back. I understand he wants to give to the community, but this is not an easy job. Let me put that out really clear. This is not an easy job. If you're committed to this work, you have to commit it. You have to do a lot of work. And in some of my presentations, I talk about what it needs to do, what do you need to do to be a counselor? So I just, and I'm 74 years old. So I don't know how old Tom is, but I know it takes a lot of energy and a lot of work to come back. So let me put it that. Theo, I think it's great. I think it's great that he's entering this race. We need some folks who have a diverse background, who have some different ideas. I think his interest in economics and his background make him an ideal candidate. I also think the fact that he is putting himself out there as a new candidate is very, very important. He doesn't have a long history in Watertown, but he's willing to make the commitment to build on that history. I mean, build on his 3 or 4 years in Watertown, and his role in the resident advisory committee is also commendable. So I think we have some very important reasons for both of those folks to be in the race.
Thank you, Caroline and John. You can decide who goes first.
Why don't I going? A little bit about me. I grew up in Watertown, and my dad was a postal worker in Watertown delivering mail to our neighbors. I learned a lot of lessons in this town, wonderful people in this town. And I, just like so many others who come to Watertown, there's a certain community vibe that Watertown enjoys, unlike other communities in the area. So I was interested in public service from the get-go. My dad worked for the federal government for many years. He and my uncle served in World War II. They served their countries. And I continued,
So I appreciate that, John, but what I want to know is, what do you think of Tom and Theo's answers, and how do you rectify that with?
Well, I mean, we're hearing a difference of experience as well, and lived experiences. I certainly identify with being a public policy enthusiast, and we need experienced leadership to continue Watertown through upcoming financial difficulties. There's a lot of, Tony mentioned, it's a hard work. There's a lot of learning, and it's not just learning on the job, but the skills that a person like me has worked on over the course of a long career getting here. And it doesn't, you can't get that overnight, but there is a heart of this community that everyone enjoys, whether they grew up here or they moved here just yesterday. We want to maintain that, I want to maintain that community vibe that makes Watertown unique.
Okay, Caroline, your turn.
Yeah, talk about community. I think Tom and I are 100 yards away from each other, maybe less than that. He's a neighbor. I actually think that both Theo and Tom, as they've said, they have different things to offer. They would play different roles if one or both of them were to win, and I think both of those roles are valuable. I think that, you know, I really appreciate that they are taking this time and having the guts, because it does take bravery to do this, to put their names forward and run for council.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say one thing though?
Of course.
I do want to emphasize that this, I was just kind of thinking about it, like this race is not between me and Tom.
Right.
So that should be very clear.
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody else?
And Greg, I'd like to just add too. I think all 5 of us, well, the 3 incumbents definitely know, but I think both Theo and I know how much work and effort this will take. And I don't think we put our names on the ballot very lightly without that consideration. And you know, Tony mentioned it the other night at the debate. He had 3 C's, but one of them was courageous. And you know what? I think putting your name on the ballot is very courageous.
Agreed.
Well, thank you all for doing it.
I want to agree as well that I commend all my colleagues in this debate for taking that initiative to run. It's a large time commitment, as everyone says, and Watertown's City Council deserves a balance of new ideas, old approaches, and I commend both Tom and for Theo for running, and for all my fellow colleagues for running as well. It does take initiative, but we have to all work together, and it's a community. And if I win or lose, I will always appreciate Watertown and the community strength it has given me.
Okay, thank you. I will say that I don't think any of your answers are going to help voters very much, but they're all very commendable. So. Okay, so let's move on. Maybe we'll find a little disagreement in the next one. So we went through a process, the city went through a process of upzoning Watertown Square as part of the Watertown area thing and to comply with MTA communities. Is it time to be upzoning other parts of the city? and particularly maybe along the Pleasant Street corridor. Caroline, you go first.
Yes. Can I just say, I lived in a community before I moved here. I lived in a community that had a much denser zoning, and I just want to say it made the community and our neighborhood stronger. And so I know people are really nervous about the, idea of building that missing middle that we are missing, but it actually makes for a better neighborhood. People know each other more, people are more engaged with each other. So I just want to say, I think that we not only should be looking at building more of that missing middle, but it would benefit the town to do that. Or I know we're a city,
John,
but it feels like a town.
John?
Can I ask a question?
So is it
What
time
was
to be
the
looking at upzoning other parts of Watertown beyond Watertown Square, including perhaps the Pleasant Street corridor?
Which corridor?
Pleasant Street.
Pleasant Street.
Yep. Are you thinking, or you want to?
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I serve in a unique situation. I was on the zoning board for 10 years in Watertown, and I was the first zoning board that took development proposals after Watertown upzoned both Pleasant Street and Arsenal Street. Pleasant Street already is upzoned, but it takes a while for a building to come up for sale is one thing, and it has to be a favorable climate for development. At higher interest rates now in the commercial mortgage rates, interest rates, it's a little difficult. But I think Watertown made a commitment some years ago, which I agree with, preserve the neighborhood integrity of our 1 and 2 story single family, but upzone the commercial industrial areas, the former really heavy industry parts of Watertown, like Pleasant Street and Arsenal Street.
Very good. Theo, your turn.
Yes, I agree. I agree that we need to upzone Pleasant Street. I think, I mean, one of the things, obviously, like, when I look at our corridor, I see a place like, Russo's. Currently, I don't know what, I think it's permitted for life sciences, but what else can be done in like, in those places? Like, so yeah, I definitely do agree that we need to upzone.
Great. Tom?
I think we should upzone just in strategic places. The neighborhoods, the feel and the nature of them. I would be careful with doing any upzoning that could change that fabric of our community.
Okay, thank you. And Tony?
Yeah, I think it's an important question. I think we have to recognize, I remember years ago when there were some changes on Pleasant Street, the people in that area, the residents that area talked about one thing consistently, and that was traffic, that they did not want to see any more changes there that would lead to more traffic. I do think, however, that upzoning does help us to create more housing, particularly affordable housing. And so I do think we need to look at a balance here. How does the upzoning affect those neighborhoods around Pleasant Street who are already facing some traffic problems and possibly a loss of cohesiveness within their community? So I think we need to look at this carefully.
Caroline, it looks like you want to say something.
Well, I just wanted to say, and I guess I missed the part about Pleasant Street in particular, but having a very dense, zoning, it also allows for more public transit, because the more people you have, the more ability you have to have a successful public transit. So I just wanted to make that point when I was hearing what.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this one? All right, go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I agree with the concept of transit-oriented development. You upzone around areas of public transit. Pleasant Street is less so of a transit hub. So transit-oriented development offers benefits of providing mixed-use neighborhoods around transit stops, which reduces traffic, improves air quality, and allows for many different types of mixes, and also the creation of open space and physical activity. We also want to encourage businesses around public transportation, encourage better public service on the MBTA, even promote the development of the water harbor as a transit alternative on Charles River from Watertown Square to points in Boston and Cambridge.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I have one more question, I think, before we go on to our final question, which is to tell us about your Watertown Mount Rushmore. And here's one that's kind of open-ended, but we're a little keeping an eye on the clock, so try to keep your answers tight. Is there one thing that you see another municipality do, a program, a service, or something that you would love to see Watertown adopt? Name one thing that somebody else, neighboring community halfway across the country or world does that you'd love to see someone adopt, and I'll let anyone who wants to go first go first. Go ahead,
I'll
John.
go first. So one thing that I've been bringing to Watertown is the concept of, well, in general, like going back to the Watertown Square situation, we have the one-story CVSs, we have all these one-story buildings. Watertown has the city has a lot of one-story buildings, and there's a concept of the senior center, building a new senior center to promote many expanded uses beyond the present senior center. But I thought of, we need to create affordable housing. We need housing for seniors. I thought, I looked at places like Somerville, Boston. They have municipal buildings like libraries and other buildings, and they build development above it. So that's, again, creating more development, more opportunities. So I'd like to see Watertown think about that more. And I think the study of the new senior center is looking at the direction, building housing upwards, creating more affordable housing opportunities, more jobs, and more customers for local businesses.
Very good. Thanks. Who would like to go next?
I'll go, and I'll follow up on John, because I said this, I think, at the last debate. Down on the South Shore, there's a community that in their senior center, and they have a senior center that has a lot more space than we do. So I do think we need to look at our space, but we need to expand the resources and the programs that we offer our seniors at the senior center. And one example on the South Shore is there's a community that offers a memory care daycare for loved ones, whether it's your parent or an uncle who can't be left alone during the day, but they could go to the senior center into this program and be provided, some activities, a meal, and in a safe environment, which is what we would want. And I think we should look at that.
Thanks, Tom. Who else?
Well, I agree with what both John and Tom have said, but I think Newton has this small business support districts. I would like to see, where they create village centers with coordinated support, they get money for facade improvement grants and stuff. I don't know the program that well, but I'd like to see something like that in Watertown.
Okay. Tony and Caroline?
Mine's quick. It would be great to have public Wi-Fi available to
Okay. Tony?
I think you only can do one, huh? Okay, so I was gonna talk about the importance of BIDs, but I think I'm gonna focus on the issue of use of our community preservation funds. I do think that, like Cambridge, we need to increase the amount of money we dedicate a certain stream of that community preservation funds to affordable housing. And I know Cambridge does way over that, maybe 80%. We may need to do that, but I do think that we need to do that. And that is an example of one city doing something that I think we could model. And I'd love to talk about BIDs at one point with you, Greg, because I don't know if they're feasible, but they are in other cities and they do offer some positives.
But it provides taxation of local businesses out of.
I would be happy to have that conversation. So thank you. Okay, here we go. Watertown's Mount Rushmore. Who should be on it? You get 4 picks. I think I'm going to start. I'll go in the opposite order we began. So, Tom, why don't you go first on this one?
Sure, and I got a question, Greg, before I give you my 4. Are we just naming the 4, or are we telling the reason?
Well, I want to keep it. I want to get done in a few minutes. So, but if you need to tell people who they are or why, briefly, please do. Not everyone may know the names you pick. So, tell us briefly about it and why.
Yeah, my 4 names, and in no particular order, but I'll start with Mike Driscoll, city manager, longest serving city manager, and it's no surprise, I think, to any of my colleagues that I would say it. He was a personal friend of mine. Learned a lot from him, and his love and dedication to this community is without, it's just there. Next person is Mark Sedaris. He's been the longest standing council president. He has led this community through a lot of good change. Just think of the infrastructure that we've done, and his commitment not only to the city council, but he has to also be on the school committee, and then he also sits on the school building committee. So those first 2, and the next one is Lucia Mastrangelo. Lucia Mastrangelo and the Mastrangelo family in particular, but Lucia, head of the library, led the library as chairman of the board of trustees for many years, and was during her tenure that the new library was built. And so I would consider her on there. She also helped my next person with the 375th anniversary of the town, and we have our 400th coming up, so we're going to get going on that. But the Lucia and E. Joyce Munger, and E. Joyce Munger, Joyce, as I knew her, did many things in the community. Her husband was a police officer. I think he retired as acting police chief. Some of her children have been police officers, but her in particular, she was on the housing authority for many years. She actually ran the Miss Watertown contest when that was in vogue back in the 60s and the 70s. And they think so highly of her, the housing authority named the apartment on Warren Street after her. So those would be my 4 people for Mount Rushmore. And I thank you, Greg, for letting us think about this ahead of time.
Caroline, your turn.
I took a very different approach. In terms of who I picked, I decided to try to really go back in our history and go through the different centuries of people who were very not only influential in Watertown, but influential throughout the country. So my first choice was Richard Saltonstall, going back to our origins, because he was fundamental in founding Watertown. Lydia Child was a nationally recognized women's rights activist in the 1800s, and she lived in Watertown. She wasn't born in Watertown. She lived in Watertown, and she ran a school in Watertown. Benjamin Robbins Curtis was from Watertown, and he was a Supreme Court justice who voted against the Dred Scott case. And then moving up to this century, I chose someone who was really influential in turning us from a town to a city. And I had lots of different thoughts, but I finally settled on John Erasian because he was such an important leader in turning us from a town to a city.
Very good. Theo.
Gosh, Caroline, you stole one of mine, but
You can duplicate it, that's fine.
but I think I'll start with my mother-in-law. I think I really got to understand Watertown through her eyes, and her passion for the city, Nancy Hammett. And a commitment to Watertown is one of the reasons why we moved here, and she didn't want to move to California, which I'm very lucky that we ended up moving over here. The other person that I would, this is a bit of a gotcha question, if I can, but the other person I would put over there is Tia Tilson, maybe, for all the work she does with the Watertown Community Foundation. I think it's an important instrument of our community. And the one that you stole, Caroline, I think is John Erasian. I don't know John Erasian. I've never met him, but from everything that I've heard, he used to be called a mayor of Watertown without ever having run for anything. I think that is a testament to someone's commitment to their community. And the last person that I would put on there, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't. Yeah, everybody on this thing for having the courage to run for office.
Thank you, John. Your turn, John.
Yes, thank you. So very fascinating to hear others' perspectives as well. I would say yes, 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 yes. So I have some thoughts as well, and in no particular order and significance, importance, but I think a major contributor to Watertown's glory of late has been Eileen Donahue, the Watertown field hockey coach. Now, she molded the Watertown Raiders field hockey program into one of the most decorated high school programs in the United States. Her 22 state championships are unparalleled in Massachusetts field hockey history. Her teams have a national college high school streak of 184 games, a national record between 2008 and 2017. But also in the larger picture, she personally inspired generations of Watertown athletes and pioneered the goals of Title IX, which is a federal civil rights law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex and education programs. So I would put it up there as well.
Thanks, John. If you keep the descriptions a little shorter, because we're.
Oh, sure. And I'm going to also recognize Benjamin Robbins Curtis, like Caroline did. He's a Watertown lawyer, United States Supreme Court Justice. He's remembered for his dissent in the Dred Scott case, which is known to be the worst decision in American U.S. Supreme Court history. And Curtis' dissent rightfully argued that the court's decision that Black people not be U.S. citizens was legally and historically baseless. And he stood for the promotion, in my mind, as a lawyer and a public servant, that do what you think is right, even though the popular opinion may not favor sticking with your convictions. My next one is Mike Driscoll, Watertown's longest serving town manager and fiscal watchdog. And like Tom, he was one of my colleagues when I was town attorney in Watertown and Mike was treasurer, and he became the acting town attorney, leading to a longer career. So working with him as a town attorney, when he was treasurer, his hard work ethic, he got a lot of projects done in the transition from the town meeting, Board of Selectmen form of government to city manager form. And despite all the challenges, recessions, rising cost, he was the one who made it happen in creating brand new schools for our school children. It wouldn't have happened without his stewardship in that regard. And a steady hand in the belief in economic development, promoting for the future, has led us to the economy we have now, where we can pay new high schools without dipping into taxpayer funds. And my final selection is Charles Lennox, going into history. He was a Black Watertown resident. He was a sergeant in the all-Black 54th Massachusetts Regiment of the movie Glory fame. Though many Watertown residents served in the Civil War, but only one fought with that regiment. And he served valiantly over the course of 2.5 years as a sergeant in the Civil War. What made volunteering with the regiment more distinct was that Confederate generals stated they would not take Black soldiers prisoners. They would execute them. So despite that, he led his beliefs, and despite being treated with indignities during the course of his time, he stuck with it. He was a good leader and a good role model for all.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tony. You get the last one of this.
Yeah, I completely did something completely different. And first off, let me appreciate everybody for their historical knowledge of people and Watertown. I looked at who's on Rushmore right now, and I came up with people who, for me, represent some things that I try to do in Watertown, and that is put forth issues around helping people in need, put forth issues around diversity. And so my four are very, very different. They start with Dr. Martin Luther King. They go to Harriet Tubman. They go to Eleanor Roosevelt, and they go to Cesar Chavez. Those are my four folks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all very much for that. That was really interesting.
Greg, can I add my last one that I
Yes,
didn't
sure.
get to? I think there is someone in town that I don't think a lot of people know about. I mean, again, these are all people that are behind the scene, but a woman named Eileen Balzer. I know her briefly, but I've heard of the great things that she's done for the community. And the more I hear about it, the more I think someone like that also deserves to be out there.
Terrific. Thank you all very much. Okay, so we're down to closing statements. This is the one where we will use a timer. My colleague Max Wolf will interrupt you or cut you off if you run out of time. Hopefully, Max, you're pinned or something, so people will be able to see you or hear you. But I think if I've got this right, actually, we'll start with Tony. You've got 90 seconds to tell us why people should vote for you, or anything else you want us to know.
Okay, I'm going to stick to the 9, do my best, because I wrote this out for this purpose. Let me begin by thanking you, Greg and Matt, and the team at the Chamber for hosting the event. I've been a city councilor for 16 years, and it is great enthusiasm that I once again run for re-election. I'm eager to use my knowledge and experience to make Watertown an even more vibrant and welcoming community. I look at 3 things: best practices. What are those for me? Learning from city staff and citizen volunteers, being patient but persistent in creating programs and policies, responding to the day-to-day needs of our residents and their concerns, and ensuring that Watertown stands for equality and justice. I turn now to the building for recognizing, honoring, and building on our accomplishments that include the establishment of the Watertown Affordable Housing Trust, the creation of our climate and energy plan, and the purchasing of Walker Pond, and there's many more. What will I do? Because I'm committed to moving Watertown forward. I will advocate for community preservation funds, as mentioned, dedicated to affordable housing, prioritize ordinances that address climate change, support small businesses, open space, in multimodal transportation in Watertown Square, and support our new Human Services Director and programs serving residents in need, seniors, veterans, and immigrants.
And that's time.
Thank you very much. Let's go with Theo next, please.
Thank you, everyone, for having joined this forum. I appreciate the opportunity to have given my perspective on why I'm running for city council. But again, my name is Theo Offei. Theo is short for Theophilus, and I hope to be your next city councilor at large. My family and I live on Riverside Street near Watertown Square, and we've called Watertown home since 2020, although my wife grew up here. We love this community. I'm running to bring a fresh perspective to the city council, to the city council. If elected, I would be the only councilor with children currently in our public schools. I believe that perspective matters deeply when we're making decisions about our city's future. Professionally, I've worked in the technology industry with venture capital firms, and today focus on real estate development. That experience is part of what drives me to run. Watertown needs a more diverse economic base. I believe we can and should be a tech hub, especially for startups. Boston is consistently ranked among the top 3 cities for venture capital investments, and our state's new economic development secretary, Eric Pilley, is one of the country's leading venture capitalists. I want Watertown to be a place where he and others look to bring the next generation of startups. At the same time, I know that mom and pop shops are the heart of our economy. We need to streamline permitting and make it easier for small businesses to grow, especially in the square. But as Jen Jacobs reminded us, you can't just bring people downtown, you have to put them there. That's why I strongly support the Watertown Square area plan, which will add housing, right in the square.
Right.
I want a
Sorry.
Watertown that is affordable for our teachers, for our restaurant workers,
Yeah.
and for our police officers and firefighters.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Theo.
you.
We have to stop. We have to stop right there. John Gannon.
Yes, thank you, Greg and the Chamber for hosting us today. Now, we've heard a lot of great discussion this morning about how Watertown can move forward. Strong schools, a climate resilient economy, strong finances, and common sense design for our roads and our squares are all part of our future. I like what I see for our future. And just like my parents had a home in Watertown and I live in Watertown, my neurodivergent son is setting up his own home in Watertown with the support of family. What we need is creative, experienced leadership. And over the course of a 30-year career, I've advised cities and towns as an attorney all over Massachusetts on ways to achieve the dreams of Massachusetts residents. I've learned even more as a 3-term city councilor at large, whether it's making sure we can all afford to live in Watertown, whether it's in making our roads safer for all kinds of travel, whether it's in creating lower emission buildings, providing a welcoming community for all, keeping us safe, or making strong fiscal decisions for our future and that of our families. We need leaders who speak from experience and not just aspirations. Growing up here, I recognize that Watertown has a unique community vibe, one that people strive to find. And like our neighbors who chose to come to Watertown, who likewise enjoyed the strength of the community, I chose to stay here and build my own family. We need to continue Watertown's sense of community for our future. I'm running for re-election as your city council at large, and I'm hoping you'll join me by giving me one of your 4 votes on Tuesday, November 4th. And I wish everyone votes on November 4th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Caroline.
Thank you. And thank you to the Chamber for having us here. One of the things I neglected to mention is that I actually have a degree in mediation, which I think gives me a perspective on how to get things done in Watertown that brings in all the voices of those who have interests. I know the Chamber has various interests. Our residents do. And one of the things that I would always love to do is to hear from everybody, to try to figure out how all of the different needs can be brought into the ordinances that we develop. And we also have to balance those needs. Priorities that benefit everyone and take everyone's ideas, thoughts, needs into consideration. That's what creates a successful community. But in addition, we also just need common sense. We need to know what will and what won't work. And I like to think that I have a lot of common sense so that we pass things that can succeed. So success is my goal. Creating successful ordinances, creating a successful community that is balanced, that will succeed for everybody. And that is what I am trying to do on the council. That's what I'm trying to do for all the residents and businesses in Watertown. So I hope I can count on one of your 4 votes for city councilor at large. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Tom Tracy.
Thank you to the Chamber and Greg for hosting this. Yeah, as you all know, I was the city auditor for 29 years, and Watertown's reputation of fiscal responsibility, financial leverage, and flexibility, and AAA bond rating has been the envy of most municipalities in the Commonwealth. I'm both proud and humbled to say that I've been an integral part of that team that allowed us as a community to reach this pinnacle of financial stability and success. While achieving this financial success and delivering the level of government services that we want and need as a community, I've always appreciated and respected the impact on our residential and commercial taxpayers. I'll bring a common sense approach reflected. I can tell you that I'm running to shape the future of our great community. I know that in shaping our future, the City Council has a significant role in that formation. I don't pretend to have all of the answers, but I can promise you that I will listen. I will ask the questions that need to be asked. I will seek compromise where it is needed. And then together we will build the Watertown of tomorrow. Thank you for your time and consideration. and please vote on November 4th.
Thanks to all of you. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed this conversation and your time. And thank you for your service and your willingness to continue to serve. So have a great day, everybody. We will share this video so you can respond to it later. Thank you all very much again.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Vote on
everyone.
November 4th.
Thank
Take
you.
care. And my colleagues, take care.
Thank you.